There for illegal immigration, I think the walls serve its purpose. I think, not everyone has the means to cut through. Not everyone has the means to find a way around or over it. So it works in that sense. But for the drug trade, I think you're absolutely correct in the sense where it's a more orchestrated approach. It's not just onesie twosies carrying backpacks. It's a full facilitation of massive quantities coming into America and by means of any means necessary. Essentially, I think there's airplanes filled with the drugs. I think there's tunnels filled with drugs. I think there's vehicles filled with drugs. I think there's boats filled with drugs, and they're going to always find a way to circumvent our systems.
And then let me also say this is that the Mexican cartels, Vince, are mixing fentanyl with other drugs.
Yes.
So a lot of the users, the consumers here in the United States are unaware that they're consuming fentanyl. And that is what is leading to a lot of deaths as a result of fentanyl overdoses.
Yeah.
Let me also say this is that the Mexican cartels have penetrated, they're not only doing or manufacturing or distributing drugs, but right now they penetrated the avocado industry, which is a $3.5 billion a year industry. Same thing with citrus fruit like lemons and limes, billion-dollar industry. They penetrated the fishing industry. Mexico has 7 oil or petroleum refineries, and they're tapping into these petroleum or Pemex pipelines and stealing about $1 billion worth of petroleum every year. Now, not everybody uses drugs, but everybody uses petroleum. And the other thing, too, that has become a multi-billion-dollar industry is the issue of migrant smuggling.
Yes.
Migrant smuggling, and they smuggle them across, the border, through the Rio Grande River. We've seen tragic incidents where they abandon them in, the tractor trailer rigs with no oxygen, with people dying there. So
Correct.
It is a very treacherous business, but it's gotten to the point where the cartels, in order to be able to move these migrants and know who's paid, who hasn't paid. You've been to some of these concerts where they give you a band,
Yep.
a little plastic band. Cartels are using that with the migrants to determine who's paid, who hasn't paid. So they're moving thousands of people across the border. And let me also say this, that the United States is also responsible for a lot of that migrant crises that we're seeing along the U.S.-Mexico border, because in the late 1980s, we started to deport a lot of the Mara Salvatrucha, or the MS-13 gang members. You'll recall, Vince, out of California, and they send them back to the Northern Triangle, the countries of Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. And they proliferated inside and outside the prisons. Now they're engaged in murder for hire, extortion, drug trafficking, and that has caused a lot of people to flee the Northern Triangle countries. You'll recall the United Fruit Company, where we propped up dictatorships,
Yep.
In Latin America, especially in Central America, but also, they're fleeing poverty. They're fleeing issues with, natural disasters like hurricanes. So I look at it as a major problem, but at the same time, I dislike the word that they use, illegal aliens, because, you can't have illegal aliens on stolen land. And you'll recall under James Polk and his doctrine of manifest destiny, where they literally stole about half of Mexico's landmass. So there's a lot of political issues there. but there's a lot of politicians that like to use the U.S.-Mexico border, the migrant problem, as political theater, nothing more than political theater.